hi. I didn't see you there. Hello. Maybe not. You know what? We're just gonna get into it. We're not gonna bother with a fun intro. We're just gonna do it because you know what we're all here for? We're just here for the reviews. We're here for the books. So let's go. Hello everyone, my name is Rachel, and today what we are doing is my March wrap-up. I absolutely cannot believe that we are almost done with March. We are almost to April. February took forever, but March has just flown. Just flown. You know what we're doing? We're doing my favorite thing, and that is doing these wrap-ups. For some reason, these may be my favorite videos to film, just because I just love going through the books that I've read and talking about them and talking about whether I recommend them or not. And this month, let me tell you, I had quite the mixed bag. I'm trying to think if I even had one 5-star review. No, my highest was a 4, but my lowest, I DNF'd a book. So we had some mixed things going on. One thing also you'll notice is I read a lot of fantasy this month, and so I'm excited to get into that. I'm excited that I'm back into my fantasy era. Without further ado, let's get into it. The first book that I read this month, I'm actually going to do as a duo. Really, the first 2 books that I read this month was Serpent and Dove and Blood and Honey by Shelby Mahurin. I did a full-on review of this one. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It is full of spoilers, and it is full of my thoughts and feelings. I read this back when it first came out, 2018, and I really enjoyed it then, and I still enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I absolutely loved this story, and so it was such a shame then to go to the second book and only give it 2 stars. I hate that when that happens, when a series starts off really, really strong, and then the second book you can just kind of tell that maybe things weren't as well thought out or put together. So just to give you a little bit of what it's about this witch named Lou and this witch hunter named Reed, and witches are against the law. You are not allowed to perform magic. And so Lou is just running from witch hunters, but also running from a deep, dark past that you find out throughout the book. And her and Reed get thrust together and end up having to get married out of a series of unfortunate events. And Reed is a very black and white type of guy, right and wrong. So it's all about just the 2 of them figuring out how to be together and to get over each other's prejudices and falling in love. There's a lot of other aspects to it, not just the relationship, but that's a big part of it. And so going into the second book, you're continuing on that story. The first book slapped so hard, and the fact that it still slapped for a reread, and then going into the second book, knowing what I knew, it just really is such a shame. I don't know with the third book. I'm still going to read the third book more out of curiosity than anything, which again is such a shame because this book is really good. So I mean, I get it if you want to read it and give it a shot, but also you can definitely skip this one. So boom. The second book that I read is The Last Daughter by Alexis Menard. This one is another high fantasy romance, and it is about this girl who doesn't have any magic, and she is supposed to lead her tribe after this big battle that went on. They were defeated by this army of fae, and the leader of this army of fae, I don't remember his name, but he ends up coming to this village to recover something that apparently the village stole, and our main girl goes with him, telling him that she'll get it for him, and basically, the bad fae prince and the girl fall in love, and they discover things together, and it's your stereotypical romance fantasy. However, I only gave it 2.5 stars. just things felt very rushed with it. From what I can remember, because honestly, I feel like I've forgotten a lot about it, a lot of the things that were supposed to be like big issues were resolved very easily. I remember at the very end, this group of people that we had never met before had come in to help our two main characters, and they basically just like explained to them exactly who they are, why they were coming to help them, and were like super kind and just like information dumped. I could tell that there just wasn't a lot of finesse to the story. I think it could have been interesting, but the plot was just very tropey. It was very typical of a fantasy romance, and so there wasn't a lot of added interest there. And then you put on top of that just a lack of finesse to the plot, and then you put on top of that still not very good chemistry, very insta-lovey. It just wasn't for me. I know that a lot of people did really like it. I believe it is on Kindle Unlimited, so if you want to read it for free, you can. Just in my opinion, I think that there's better fantasy romances out there. It's definitely one that I think you could skip, which sucks that I'm starting off this wrap up with 3 books basically that you could skip. But the next one though is a good one that you absolutely have to read, and it is The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is my first Carissa Broadbent book. I feel like she is on the up and coming, if not uber popular, just depending on if you are in the fantasy realm. But she primarily writes fantasy romances. This is a newer series of hers. Her other series is called The Daughter of No Worlds. People have compared it to Throne of Glass, which I'm a huge Throne of Glass girly, so of course I'm going to read that series. This series, specifically The Serpent and the Wings of Night, is her new one. It is fantasy, but it's vampire fantasy. So basically it is about this girl. I don't remember her name. Like, I can't say her name. I can't say her name or the guy's name. Her name starts with an O, his name starts with an R. But we have this main girl, and she is a human in this world of very powerful vampires. And she decides to go into this competition. And so if you win this competition, then you are awarded one favor. And her father, this vampire king, who basically adopted her in, wants her to win so then she can get the favor and basically ask for something that he specifically wants. And she is very devoted to her father. Well, while she is in this competition, she meets this guy. His name starts with an R, and he is a very powerful vampire. I think he's like a fae and a vampire. I don't know. The plot was so good, the pacing was so good, the tension was so good. It is very, very hard to find a good balance of all of those things, of having a really good plot, having really good writing, and having really good characters. And Carissa is really good with it. She can write a very compelling story with very compelling characters. Even if it seems very tropey, she can turn that trope on its head. Her writing makes it more interesting. And so I highly recommend this one. I gave it 4 stars. Really, I should have given it 4.5. I'm very excited to read her next book. It's coming out this coming month. And so I'm excited to continue on with the story. Go read it if you are a fan of fantasy. Even if you like clean fantasy, it's very easy to skip the spicy parts if you don't want to read them. But the spicy parts, they're good. So anyways, read that one. The next book that I read is The Yuri Born by Legrand. Now this one is one that I have had for a long time. It has been on my physical TBR for a very long time. And unfortunately, I gave it, I only gave it 1.5 star. Having a book on your physical TBR, finally reading it, and then realizing that it sucks. Okay, basically this book is about 2 different timelines. You have this queen of back in the day who we find out in present day basically ruined history, ruined everyone's lives. And then you have this new girl who doesn't like anyone or anything, and is probably chosen to be the savior of everyone. So you've got these 2 dual timelines going on. The point of views, they would switch off after every chapter, and every chapter was super, super short. Each chapter would be cut off within the middle of a scene. and then you wouldn't get any resolution, and then you would just go back to whoever else, and it would have nothing to do with what was going on with the other one. So really, I just kept losing interest. I just got so bored while reading it. Once things started to get interesting, we would move to a different viewpoint, and then I would forget what was going on before, and then we would come back. And so for me, I think something that could have helped immensely is if the author just completed a whole scene, made a whole scene, climaxed it, all of it, had some resolution to it, and then move on to a different viewpoint. But instead, it was just chopped up little bits. And it would be totally different if things were mirrored with each other, the past and the present. But really, it just felt like two different books being written into one. I didn't like it. I got bored. I just wanted to be done with it. I knew that some people really liked it, and I really wanted to like it, but in the end, I couldn't. So the next two books that I read were also on Kindle Unlimited, and they are Frost and Ambrosia by CN Crawford. The books themselves were not that great. I ended up giving both of them 2 stars. They were fine in terms of if you want to have an uber cheesy fantasy romance, go for it. Like, I think it would scratch that itch. But as far as like plot and like good characters and like well thought out worlds, it really didn't have that. These 2 books, they're set it's kind of like an urban fantasy, but not. Like, you have like this fey castle, but then you also have the outside world that is like our everyday world where like humans and orcs and different beings are just chilling. Our main character like goes to a bar, she walks in on her human boyfriend, cheating on her, and then all of a sudden she is chosen to be a part of this competition to become queen, and it's because the prince decides to stop for some reason at the bar she's at, and she like yells at him. Like, I don't know, there's just different parts of it that I was like, okay, sure. It was just kind of strange. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I honestly have forgotten a lot about it. The romance was fine in it. I probably won't read another book by her just because I just wasn't a huge fan of it. Again, if you are looking to scratch like the fantasy romance itch, then yeah, give it a shot. See if you'll really like it. But for me, it just wasn't that good. So the next books that I read, I am going to again put all together, and it is the Inheritance Games trilogy. If you haven't seen yet my reading blog of the Inheritance Games, go check it out. You can see my reactions while I'm reading it, and then also my review of this book. I had a lot of thoughts on it, so go check it out. I ended up giving it 4 stars. And a lot of the hopes that I had for the next books, I kind of got, but not enough. I ended up giving both of the last 2 books 3 stars. I just wanted more personality from Avery, and I didn't get that. The Inheritance Games is about this girl named Avery Graham, and she is very poor. She inherits billions of dollars. She inherits everything from this grandfather of his. And so basically the entire series is about why she was chosen for it, and all of the secrets of the grandfather, and all of the different games and puzzles and clues that he left behind. It's a very fast-paced series, and so I definitely recommend to any YA readers out there. It is so good. For me, I just needed more depth from our main character, and also there were just some characters that I felt deserved better, especially a lot of female characters that I felt deserved better as far as like a plot. I had a hard time liking any of the female characters, which is so opposite of me. Usually I'm down for all the female characters. It was just a shame that I didn't have any complex female characters. Even though our main character was a female, even she wasn't all that complex. I felt like I didn't get any of her personality throughout the series. She just felt very one-dimensional compared to all of the other, like, on a 10 level characters. But overall, I do recommend the series. I think it was really interesting, really fun, very different. It was very funny, the different like soap opera-y type tropes that were going on in it. I think people should read it, give it a shot, because I had a really good time reading it. The next book I'm going to talk about is Baby Teeth by Zoje Stage. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I DNF'd it. I do not recommend this book. I think it was a terrible book. It's supposed to be like The Orphan. So it's like a thriller, scary book about a creepy child, right? This is probably the weirdest book I have ever read. And let me tell you why. There is weird side plots of the child being possessed by a witch. We've got the over-sexualization of a child. I hate it when like books or movies do this, where they do like this scary, like demon-possessed female, and then they make them uber sexual. And so doing that with a child and doing that with the wife, with the mom of this child, it just gave me the ick. I got about halfway before I was like, no, I'm not going to continue reading this. I read like the last 2 chapters, and it basically just ends with the mom being like, we don't love you enough to bring you back home because the daughter is put in an institution. I felt like the characters were all very stupid, and I was like, I don't want to read this. I don't want to read this. I don't think anyone should read this. It just wasn't well done. It wasn't compelling. It was just gross. And if anything, it was boring too. Like, there wasn't any interesting plot points, which is not what you want with a thriller or a mystery. Definitely don't recommend this. Don't read it. It's weird. So the next book that I read was Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. This is a small town romance. So it's about this guy named Nash, who is like the good guy of the town. He is the police chief. And then this girl named Lena who comes into town, and she is a insurance investigator. So she's trying to find something in this town that has to do with a crime, and Nash is, trying to protect her. I really read this more as like a palate cleanser, which probably wasn't the best thing because it actually started to put me into a reading slump. And I think it's just because it's way too long. This should probably be 25%, if not 30% shorter, just because there's not enough plot in here to like really keep you going. It dips in the middle like completely to where I'm like, so what are we trying to do again? I will say I did like the characters of this one more than the first one. I was definitely vibing with the beginning of this book a lot more than I was the first one. I think that this would just be a fun leisure read if you're, just on vacation, just chilling, whatever. I think her books are really good for that. I don't know. I just have a hard time with her books. I don't know why that is. I really do think it could be because of the length of them, and I really don't think they need to be this long. Also, they are very, very cheesy, but sometimes that's really fun to read. I would recommend if you are a huge like contemporary romance fan, or if you're looking for a light, easy, fun beach read. And then the last 2 books that I read, What Lies Beyond the Veil by Harper L. Woods, and then also the second book in that series, which is What Hunts Inside the Shadows. I gave them both 3.5 stars. So this is a fantasy romance series. I'm currently reading the 3rd book. I would say I do recommend this series. I think it's good enough. Again, if you are looking for a good fantasy romance, I think it would scratch that itch. If you were looking just for a fantasy, I wouldn't recommend it. So it's basically about this girl named Estella. Wow, I forgot her name already. I'm not good with names. It's about this girl named Estella, and she is a servant in a human town. She is human, and there is this huge veil that's basically a border. And it separates the Fae from the humans. And one day that veil is broken, and all of these humans are then Fae marked. And what that means is that you have a Fae mate. And so Estella is marked. So her and her brother go on the run, and then while she's on the run, she meets this Fae, and things happen. I'm sure you can guess. But it is a very fun read, I would say. The plot is there. I would say that the first one is better than the second one. The second one definitely feels like it's just setting up for the third book, which I then have seen a review about the third book that the third book feels like it's just a setup for the fourth book. I'm not expecting too much plot because there wasn't too much plot necessarily in the second book. It felt a lot more like info dumping, but the first one was really good. You've got really good like tension in the relationships. If you are looking for just a good, relaxing fantasy romance read, I would say that this is a really good series to go to. I think it's better than probably a lot of them that are out there, but it's not so good that like it just sucks you in and it becomes your whole identity. So if you're looking for something kind of like that, I would definitely recommend this one. This also, I should say, it's very spicy, so know that going into it. If you don't like spice, don't read these books. If you love spice, read them. It really does have enough plot to really bring you in, and like it's got like some world building in there. I think it could go a lot faster, and I think it could be done a lot better, but for what it is, I think it is good. So I would recommend that one. So yeah. Finally, I think I only recommended how many of these? The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent, Inheritance Games trilogy, What Lies Beyond the Veil and What Hides Inside the Light, and really Things We Hide from the Light. I think you could read all of those. The rest of them you could probably do without and you would be fine. I will say this month I did feel myself starting to go into a reading slump, and I really do think it does have to do with a good amount of them not being like super good reads. I made it through a majority of my TBR. I didn't quite make it to the Alice Paradox, but maybe this coming month, the mood reader in me just like took all of that away. And so I just started reading the books that I wanted to instead of reading the books that I should, because I know that the Alice Paradox is going to be good. Like, I know it is. So anyways, these are all the books. I'm pretty sure it was just like 13, 12, 13. Yeah. So I read 13 books this month. Not bad. Pretty average for me. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed. I am definitely still in a fantasy kick. So if you have any fantasies that you want to recommend to me, please do. I am looking for some. I think I'm going to start rereading the Throne of Glass series, and I want to do something really special for it. I'm trying to decide if I want to do like a separate video for it, for like each book, or like how I want to do it. So if you have any fun thoughts of what you think I should do or how I should do it, let me know. Or like, should I do a book review on each one? Like, I don't know. Like, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and we'll see what we come up with. And I will talk to you all again soon. Bye!